The reason I've stuck with Destiny for so long, through its highest highs and lowest lows, has everything to do with its incredibly strong foundation. Throwing flaming hammers at aliens just feels good. And while the past few expansions were adequate but flawed iterations that kept my appetite fed, the Witch Queen feels like a breakthrough that finally realizes the long-running looter shooter's greatest potential. This latest update provides not only Destiny's first truly phenomenal story alongside a campaign that's both challenging and memorable, but also a weapon crafting system that's a godsend for hardcore devotees like myself, new light-wielding enemies that completely evolve the flow of combat, and more. While some areas like PvP have still been left in a disappointing lurch, there's no doubt in my mind that the Witch Queen is otherwise the best Destiny's ever been. Destiny has always struggled to balance its rich lore with its action-packed, over-the-top gameplay, so it would be understandable if you have almost no idea what's going on most of the time. But Bungie has spent the last several years trying to change that, introducing meaningful story developments and characters that feel more three-dimensional. Nowhere is that more apparent than in The Witch Queen, which, for the first time, doesn't just tell a passable story, but an actively compelling one. The star of the show is the Witch Queen herself, Savathun, the hive god of deception, who has succeeded in claiming the almighty power of the light for herself and her hive brood. But her story is much more than the usual Monster of the Week fanfare, where we drive a tank through her face and emote on her corpse in glorious fashion. Instead, we get to know her life and motivations, understanding her to be more than a purely evil entity out to destroy us, complete with multiple, jaw-dropping twists and turns that make the roller coaster ride much more enjoyable.
I've chased you for a long time.
The campaign can be completed in just 5 to 6 hours on its hard difficulty, but the ride is unique, challenging, and more inventive than any Destiny campaign before it. That's partly thanks to the addition of puzzle mechanics to levels and boss fights that have been almost exclusively gated behind raids and Destiny's endgame content up until this point. Now, instead of just standing on a plate or scanning an artifact before shooting a boss to death, you might have to remember a set of symbols and fight your way through the halls of a palace, searching for the door with a matching set before the boss can be damaged. One of the new challenges you'll face along the way is the fearsome light-bearing hive, immortal monsters with many of the same abilities your own character possesses. In fact, they can even endlessly be revived by their ghost to fight you again and again, which is honestly terrifying. Victory against these formidable foes requires smart gunplay, patience, and most importantly, that you remember to quickly run and crush the enemy ghost before it can revive them. A new enemy type that forces you to think about how you approach an encounter like this is exactly what Destiny has needed to spruce up combat. Knocking them out and smashing their ghosts in my hand has been the highlight of my time with the Witch Queen. Once you've conquered the Witch Queen's campaign, there's plenty to do in the way of quests and smaller, repeatable cooperative activities. But as usual, when it comes to endgame content, the raid is king, pitting 6 players against some of the toughest challenges to be found in any game. This year's raid is called Vow of the Disciple, and it takes place in a bizarre alien museum filled with grotesque statues and pieces of preserved living tissue, apparently put on display there by the galaxy's most disturbed hoarder. The trials within are enigmatic puzzles that require powerful gear, incredible teamwork, and fast reaction times to overcome, and it's some of the most fun the Witch Queen offers for those brave enough to tackle it. More importantly though, Vow of the Disciple also does some serious heavy lifting in terms of storytelling, and setting up for future events still to come in Destiny, something few other raids have done so far. Of all the new frontiers the Witch Queen offers though, none are so enticing as the long-awaited weapon crafting system, which is a joyous windfall for RPG nerds like myself. Now, instead of relentlessly grinding the same activities over and over in hopes of getting that perfect weapon with all the right perks you were looking for, you can simply craft it to your exact specifications. There are a few caveats though. First, doing so is every bit as needlessly complex as you might expect from Destiny, forcing you to juggle a bunch of new, confusingly named currencies in a process so hilariously dense you'll get whiplash coming at it straight from the fast-paced battlefield. And second, building your perfect weapon requires, wait for it, a whole lot of grinding. That's right, the new system that lets you avoid the grind for the perfect weapon is replaced by a different grind to level up a mediocre weapon until it's powerful enough to be crafted into its final form. The good news is, now you at least always know there will be a definitive and predictable end to the grind, instead of playing endlessly hoping RNG will be kind to you. But killing thousands of enemies and completing dozens of activities just to level up a single weapon is still quite a climb. One entirely welcome addition in the Witch Queen is a new weapon archetype called the Glaive, which is a polearm that can be used to block incoming fire, attack enemies in melee, and fire projectiles to hit others from a distance. It's been a few years since Destiny got a proper new weapon type, and this one shakes things up in a big way as the first melee and ranged hybrid option. But the experiment is a glowing success. Glaives are a lot of fun to use, and play a major role in Destiny's weapon ecosystem, to the point where I found it difficult to take one off of my loadout. While just about every inch of content added with the Witch Queen does everything right, its shortcomings are instead defined by what isn't there. That's embodied perfectly by the complete lack of additions both in Destiny's PvP modes and the PvE-PvP hybrid mode, Gambit. Once you step out of the excellent campaign and new content around it, which you'll almost certainly need to do during the grind to the endgame, you'll find that absolutely nothing has been added to Crucible, no new game modes, and not a single map. This isn't a new trend either, as Bungie has largely left their PvP options rotting on the vine, but the Witch Queen is yet another expansion that largely ignores the issues. It's getting harder to overlook that when Crucible and Gambit are stood up as such large cornerstones of what players are expected to do. Destiny 2 The Witch Queen represents the best expansion that Destiny has ever received. From the fantastic campaign, to its world-class raid, to the new abilities and weapons that will forever change the way I fight on the battlefield. I didn't think it possible, but by God, Bungie actually managed to tell an impressively good story in Destiny alongside all of that too. And that just warms my stasis-frozen heart. I still wish they showed more love to competitive multiplayer in Gambit, which badly need help due to the severe neglect they're currently experiencing. But overall, the Witch Queen has put a big, stupid grin on my face that I don't see going away anytime soon. For something completely different, check out our reviews of Gran Turismo 7 and Elden Ring. And for everything else, stick with IGN.